Hey, tribe, I'm going to go into something specific today to support parents in talking to their teenagers in preparing them for sex. I thought this would be useful, and this is Shia, your Tantra expert, coming from Florida today. And I remember that I had a potent conversation with a colleague where we were like, I'm really surprised that we as parents are not addressing this better, because I think most of us relate to not really feeling prepared enough. I know I wasn't told anything or prepared in any way for sexuality or dating. And my parents didn't know anything, so can't expect them to give you something if they don't have it themselves. So let's nip that in the bud, right? So we were talking about, because I was just having this big aha moment and I was sharing it with her, and it just so happened that she had gone through the training of how to talk to teenagers, and it was like a school program, but it's just a little controversial, to talk about sexuality in a school setting. And so she was having a hard time getting it to go, I guess. And so we talked about how, if we shared it on YouTube or a social platform, parents and teenagers can just find it on their own and listen to me or anyone else talking about this, so that we are better preparing our children for dating and sexuality, so they don't make the same mistakes we did. Because I don't know about you, those were painful mistakes. And don't we want to be preparing our children for a better experience so we don't keep perpetuating the same pain and mistakes? And, sometimes it can actually be tragic too. And that's where a lot of our childhood wounding can happen. And so it's like, why aren't we doing a better job at this and just preventing it and nipping it in the bud? So here we go. So I thought I would just go into what I would say if I had a daughter. I would say, it took me years to actually develop my communication skills, and you have a much better role model than I did. So it's really huge for women to have their voice, because if you don't have your voice and if you're uncomfortable speaking up in these situations, communication is everything. And you come to learn that over time in life, that if you are going to invest in your communication skills, all your relationships improve. And so if you don't have your voice yet and you're shy, or you're just not confident enough to speak up, then you're really not ready to have the sex conversation with a partner as a teenager in order to even engage. Because if you can't share what your wants, needs, desires are effectively, and be able to say no and stick to it and have healthy boundaries, which most teenagers don't have. It's unusual if they do, but most, I would say, are not prepared for that. And that's why things go awry. And I know in my case, I did not have my communication skills in place, because it seemed like my family was a little more on the minimalist side of things when it came to communication. And I remember just sitting there so many times going, oh my gosh, that was awful. But I didn't want to emasculate him. I didn't really want to embarrass him. I didn't even want him to know how angry I was. That, like, really, dude, do you think that's cool? Like, you think that's okay? And in my case, and unfortunately in a lot of women's cases, I was experiencing where I was just trusting them, like they knew what they were doing, assuming they knew what they were doing, because usually I was with older men too, and some did, but a lot of unconscious men, I think, were just preying on my innocence, because that's something I do have, period. I always will. And so basically, they would like last 5 minutes and leave me hanging with nothing. And I'm like, really? Like, how can you think that that's okay to do that to a woman? Like, you got to at least reciprocate and hopefully last longer. Of course, when you're young, you don't know these things. And then I remember just feeling like, oh man, sex is so anticlimactic. It's like, what's the big deal about this? This is not really fun. It's really just feels awful, because I don't feel like my needs are being met at all. And he got what he wanted, but I didn't get anything I wanted. And so I was just like, why are they making such a big deal about this? I don't really see what the draw is. And I remember thinking that sex was like a 5 minute, 10-minute thing. And so I remember having this thought like, wow, I better try to drag out this foreplay part as long as I can, because otherwise they're just done in 5 minutes and then it's over. And I'm like, I can do without it. Why risk STDs or pregnancy and all that just for a 5 minute thing that didn't even feel good? So anyway, so ladies, young ladies, teenagers, you're the boss. Just see yourself as the lady boss, because you are the boss. You're the boss of your body. And basically, it's the thing that's going to really turn this whole thing around in our culture is you speaking up and saying, enough, this is what I require, this is how it has to look and be, otherwise I don't want to play. And that's what's going to get men's attention when enough of us are doing that. And they're like, oh, okay, I better get my game, up. I better step up to the plate. I better do some work, or get some skills, get educated, because I think they've just been resting on their laurels and getting away with it in the entitled kind of patriarchy thing. And they're just ignorant or whatever, right? So, but as a woman, as a young woman, I would not engage unless you feel really prepared and confident about your ability to communicate and navigate such a situation. And otherwise, you could end up starting off with feeling like, it's really not all that it's cracked up to be. Guys will always, pretty much always come. Most guys are rigged. They're going to come, and they've kind of trained themselves to come quickly. Because that's what porn represents. They're not going to film the whole build up of 15 minutes or whatever to get there. They're just giving you the cum shots, the exciting moments, and they're not doing anything even close to what it takes in the building up period to get to that point. And it's a lot of stuff you just can't capture and on camera in the way of like intimacy and bonding and all the stuff that actually makes it really cool for a woman. They're just kind of highlighting the things that I guess are visually stimulating, but there's a lot of energetics that are going on that you may not be picking up on at all. So having your own self-love practice is really important, because you have to have that self-love in place before you can expect others to love you. It has to be an inside job first. And how you love yourself is how others will show up to love you, because you'll have a certain standard, what works for you. You can share that with the partner. I know a lot of my girlfriends lost their virginity in college, and I would hear the stories and I'd just be like, oh, that's so bad, and it's just so tragic. So I want you to be more prepared in this situation, because guys, unfortunately, when they're all juiced up and like feeling turned on by you, and you might even be ovulating, because their body knows you're ovulating, even though they don't know. And your bodies will be talking to each other behind the scenes, and his body will have more of a raw reaction, especially if you're ovulating, which of course then there's the side effect of pregnancy if you're not careful. So you have to always be prepared, because you're the one that's responsible for your body. You can't count on him to protect you necessarily, because a lot of men just don't handle that pregnancy situation very well, and they'll just run, So a lot of times when they're wanting that, when they're turned on, when they're really hoping and excited to get you in bed, they will say anything. And it's really sad because what it means is that they're lying a lot of times, and you can feel scammed, you can feel like, wow, he seemed so into it. And then, of course, once it's over, then it's like he's out of there, and a lot of times will ghost you or just have changed feelings, or he's just not into it anymore. He already got what he wanted. The chase was short, and, he was curious, and, he got the prize, and he doesn't necessarily have any motivation to keep chasing. And so just be careful. A lot of them will even bring up things like marriage and kids and plans of the future. And I mean, it's a crazy. And the men, you have to also admit to this. There's definitely a lot of men, because it's happened to me. You will talk all kinds of big talk. Sometimes they'll be really cocky and um, acting all cocky about their abilities and their skills, and then you get in the bedroom and you're just like, where are they? You don't have any game. So I always found that kind of weird too. It's like, wow, total disappointment. So you just got to be careful, ladies, because when all that testosterone is like rolling through their body, it's like their brain goes out the window sometimes in their excitement, and they're just really not thinking straight, and they're just doing everything they can to try to get laid, and at your expense is the part that's tragic. So you need to be just aware of that. It's something that is better for you to, get to know him, establish a friendship first, make him prove himself and earn his right to be there. I mean, this is your most sacred gift to men, so it's not something you just hand out willingly just to anybody. And, on a spiritual level, it's one of those things where you really want, some say on a spiritual level, I know this is a Christian message that comes from Jesus, where they talk about it's best if you have love between you, because otherwise it is just sex, and it's just a physical thing. And love making, and sex at its best is when you actually care for the person mutually. Otherwise, if there's no love there, it's kind of flat. It doesn't last. It's lacking the care and the aftercare, and lacking just so much. It's meant to be shared, I think, between two people who care about each other. They may not necessarily be in love, because you're teenagers and you're not going to necessarily go off and marry at this point in time. You better not. But you need to care enough for each other, and make sure that you've invested enough in each other that it seems like kind of like an appropriate next step, where that he wouldn't just ditch you or run away, or whatever they do. They they have a lot of hormones and stuff they're working with, and they're trying to harness and trying to discipline it into, it's like they're a wild horse or something. And as a woman, you're having to go down, boy, so, so it's just good to be aware of, and, respect yourself enough to require them to respect you, and make sure it's exactly the way you want it. So, I've had to learn myself. I was like, I need massage to warm me up to get there. Ladies first, you're going to take care of me first, because after they release, they're checked out and they can't be present as well, because all that life force just left their body through the ejaculate. So you're going to make sure that there's plenty of foreplay, and women, ladies, teenagers, you get activated from the top down. So that's why we kiss first, and then we neck second, and then we, the breasts get involved third, and we move down the body systematically. If they're skipping steps and they're going straight for your groin, you're just like, what? Like I'm not even warmed up. There's a certain system as a woman that we open up in these ways, one at a time. And if they're skipping steps, you're just going to feel off and confused, and you're not going to be lubricated by the time they're wanting to engage. And it takes you 20 to 30 minutes to reach climax, because there has to be enough safety. You have to be able to drop in and surrender to the experience enough to trust him to even have an orgasm. And then he's got to rub things the right way, which is where you teach him how to do it. Clitoris is really important. And then once things are getting flowing lube wise, you can add a finger, start that way. And you don't even have to engage in intercourse. Just play with in these other ways of pleasuring each other with your hands or orally before you even get to the intercourse part, just because the game changes when you add intercourse. You can pretty innocently play and explore the other ways, but once you add intercourse, it changes the relationship. It changes the expectations on both sides, especially for women. It's like, if I'm going to have intercourse with you, you got to step up and be a man of someone I'm proud to be with. Otherwise, it doesn't feel like you belong here. So, there's a lot more expectation, and there's responsibility, because one thing guys, I think, have forgotten is there's a responsibility when you engage sexually with a woman. You can't just have all the fun stuff and then leave when, and not have any responsibility or accountability. If you're going to be sexually active with a woman, then the boys need to learn that there's accountability to her, to treat her with respect and care. And even if you're not a match and you don't continue, it needs to be done maturely, so that she's not just feeling like she got abandoned, because that just creates more, it just perpetuates more pain between men and women. So, there's definitely, that needs to improve in our culture, because I think men have gotten away with just taking off and not being responsible or accountable, and it's just really sad. And I'm so grateful for the good men, out there that are doing it right, because there's more and more of them all the time. And I just know my experience, and just so many girlfriends sharing their experience, and clients, I just get tired of hearing the same old thing, So we've got to turn this ship around. And so ladies, it's up to you, because if you're just letting him get away with all this stuff, and if you're not communicating any of this stuff to him, how does he know? It's like he needs a wake-up call. He needs education. He needs to know, he needs to learn your body before he's going to be effective. And if you just rush right into it like a one-night stand or something, he doesn't know anything. He's just trying to get what he can, in a short period of time. And it just doesn't work that way. So anyway, those are a few thoughts to think about as a teenager before going into a sexual experience.